4% of the equity, 40% of the vote. One family, 5 generations deep, has never owned the company in any meaningful financial sense, and has never once lost control of it either. That is not an accident of history. That is the entire point of the architecture. Here is the story you were sold. 1956. Henry Ford II takes his family's private empire public in what was, at the time, the largest public offering in American history. The press called it a democratization. Ordinary Americans, for the first time, could own a piece of the company that built the assembly line. The myth writes itself. Capital markets open the gates, ownership disperses, and control follows the money the way it is supposed to in a functioning shareholder democracy. Buy the stock, own a piece of the vote. That is the deal capitalism claims to offer. It was never the deal Ford offered. The 1956 offering was not designed to give the public control. It was designed to give the public the bill. Henry Ford II and the family's advisors understood something most retail investors still refuse to internalize 70 years later. You can sell equity without selling authority. The family needed capital for expansion, for estate tax liabilities, for liquidity that private ownership could never provide. What they did not need, and never intended to provide, was a seat at their own table for every stranger who bought a share. So the offering was structured in 2 classes before a single share hit the market. Common stock for the public, Class B, stock for the family. And the ratio between them was never an accident. It was the entire mechanism. Here is how it actually works, stripped of the euphemism. Ford's Class B shares carry a fixed voting power, roughly 40% of total votes, regardless of how many Class B shares actually exist or how diluted the family's economic stake becomes over time. The common stock, the shares you or I could buy on any exchange, carries the remaining vote, split across a shareholder base so fragmented that no outside coalition has ever been able to organize enough of it to matter. The Class B shares are also non-transferable outside a specific family trust structure. You cannot buy your way into that voting class no matter how much capital you deploy. The family can sell down their economic ownership to 4%, to 3%, to whatever number reflects generational dilution and estate planning, and the voting floor holds. That is not a loophole. That is the design specification. Why did regulators allow this in 1956, and why do they still allow it now? Because dual-class structures do not violate securities law. They violate an assumption the public makes about what a share represents. The prospectus disclosed the structure in full. Every buyer of Ford common stock since 1956 has technically been told, on paper, that they were buying economic exposure without proportional governance. Nobody reads it that way. Nobody wants to. They want to believe a share is a share. And Ford was not an isolated experiment. It was a prototype. Google restructured its shares before its own public offering, specifically to prevent founders from being outvoted as the company scaled, building a Class B tier that mirrors the Ford logic almost exactly. Meta's Class B stock hands Mark Zuckerberg voting control that dwarfs his economic ownership, insulating him from shareholder revolt regardless of how the market prices the company. Berkshire Hathaway runs its own dual-class system, engineered by Warren Buffett, for reasons that have nothing to do with democratizing his conglomerate and everything to do with preserving decision velocity at the top. Ford did not invent dynastic control through share structure. Ford proved it could survive 7 decades of public scrutiny, 3 recessions, a near bankruptcy, and constant activist pressure without a single successful challenge to the family's voting floor. This is the kind of mechanism most channels never bother explaining because it doesn't trend. It just quietly runs the world. If you want to keep seeing how power actually structures itself, subscribe. So who actually benefits from this, and who absorbs the cost? The Ford family retains effective control over board composition and, critically, chief executive selection, decisions that shape the company's entire trajectory, without carrying proportional financial exposure to the outcomes. If the company performs poorly, the family's 40% voting bloc is largely insulated from the kind of forced restructuring that would threaten an equivalent stake in a single-class company. But diversified public shareholders, pension funds, index funds, retail investors who bought Ford stock believing they owned a fraction of a democratic enterprise, absorb the operational risk of decisions they were structurally never able to block. 2006 is the cleanest case study anyone could ask for. Bill Ford, then chief executive, made the decision to mortgage nearly all of Ford's physical assets, plants, patents, the Blue Oval trademark itself, to secure roughly $23 billion in liquidity ahead of what would become the financial crisis. It was, in hindsight, a defensive masterstroke that let Ford avoid the government bailouts that consumed General Motors and Chrysler. But notice the sequence. Outside shareholders did not vote on this decision in advance. They could not have blocked it if they opposed it. The Class B voting bloc, combined with a compliant board shaped by decades of family influence, made the call. Public shareholders got to ratify it after the fact. In the same way, a jury ratifies a verdict the judge has already decided. It worked out. That is almost beside the point. The point is that it did not need to work out for the family to retain the authority to make that call in the first place. But was Ford simply protecting the company, or protecting itself first, and the company as a byproduct? The two motives are not mutually exclusive, and that is exactly why the structure survives scrutiny. It produces outcomes defensible enough that shareholders rarely organize the will to challenge the architecture underneath them. Widen the lens, and the pattern stops looking like heritage and starts looking like a template. Dual-class structures are now the preferred instrument for any founder or family that wants access to public capital markets without submitting to public capital market accountability. It is why so many technology founders now go public with supervoting shares baked in from day one, learning explicitly from what Ford proved could last. This is not a relic of 1956 industrial paternalism. It is the current preferred architecture for anyone building a company they intend to control for a lifetime, or hand down to people who share their last name. The market will keep calling this ownership, because ownership is the word that keeps the public buying in. But ownership and control were never the same transaction, and Ford's cap table has spent nearly 70 years proving it in plain sight, disclosed in every prospectus, understood by almost no one who actually bought the stock.